see here. So we're doing a trainer companion. The entire hour and 17-minute effort that I did up the Hammer Road Rally gravel climb. This is meant to have you get on the trainer, watch this, hear this, listen to this, just kind of zone out, because it's long, right? It's obviously an hour or something minutes. And I'm going to talk all about everything I know about gravel. Essentially, that's what we're going to talk about, like gravel, everything. Bike choice, tire choice, scouting, the course, like different types of gravel, like deep rocks, sand, technical, whatever. So we're talking all about gravel, everything I know about gravel. We're also going to talk about elevation, and then just a bunch of other stuff, man, because it's like an hour and 17-minute video. So sit back, put it on somewhere if you're working, you know what I mean? Or if you're getting on the trainer, whatever the case, you'll figure it out. You're a grown-ass adult. So we're here in Shaver, California. I did a video on this whole fondo, but this is the main big climb. There's 3 time segments. There is one really steep one. Then there's one just kind of chill, like 6-7 minute. And then there is this guy, which when you look at the course profile, you're like, okay, it's going to come down to this because, when I scouted this course, I did an hour and 30 minutes on this, and the KOM was like an hour and 29 minutes, right? So, that's just so long. And so for most people doing this, if you're not going hard, like if I was just out there riding, having a good time, like it was not about an effort. If you could easily do an hour and 50 minutes, 2 hours on this friggin' climb, and pretty much 99% of it is gravel, and it's all at elevation, man. So I've got my daughter in the back slamming a wrench on her play table, so like, you know what I mean. It's okay. So just, you know what I mean. There's a little baby in the background smashing stuff. This whole climb is at elevation. So we start at 5,500 feet of elevation, go all the way up to 9,200. So before we really get into like gravel and that whole thing, which this is Cam Piper in front of me. He is an actual pro for Team Illuminate. He is insanely freaking strong. He got 4th at the Belgian Waffle, and he won some tour, like Tour of Taiwan, or I don't know, dude. He won a tour of a thing, and if you ever win a tour of a thing, you dope. So anyway, he's crushing. Levi Leipheimer's here. He's crushing. The last time we did this, because this is, I think, the 4th or 5th edition of this ride, and it's almost always had a different course. And so Levi, in the last 2 that he's done, that I've done with him, he hasn't really competed. Like, he might kind of be up there, but he's not gonna win his own event. You know what I mean? He came here to win his own event, so he was playing. And dude, since the climb is so long, it's just like, there is no hiding. There's no drafting. There's no games. You could play games for 30 minutes. You could play games for 45 minutes. Maybe even if you just literally liquidate your soul for the first hour, there's still more to come. So for me, I did this in an hour and 17 minutes. So let's say I do my best hour power ever. I still have 17 more minutes to go. And then I would be at 8,000 feet of elevation. So you got to pace it really, really well. And so by pacing, this is my strategy, is when I came into this, I was decently fit. I had good fitness and low fatigue. And over the last 3 years of staring at my power meter in beautiful places, I know quite a bit about what my numbers mean to me, because I've spent a lot of time paying attention to it. And that's the thing about a power meter, dude, is that if you spend the money to get one, you have to spend the time to understand what those numbers mean. And the more time you invest in that, the more you become like a little watt Nazi, where it's like, dude, 1 watt up or down makes such a difference, because you know exactly where your body can and can't go. And so So anyway, so I start the pacing at, I want to do 300 watts for this entire effort, which for me at this point is doable at sea level. Maybe not so much doable at elevation, but we're gonna give it a go. We're gonna try to shoot for 300 watt average. Now, since the elevation at the beginning is so much different than at the end, I'm gonna sort of negative split this, where like the first half of the ride is a lot higher power than the last half of the ride. I know usually at sea level you would do it the other way, or just not at elevation. Like in a time trial, usually you would want to do the first half of the ride below your target, and then you do the last half of your ride above your target. But here you cannot do that, because once you get to elevation, you can't do the same power you would usually. So I started off with going, okay, let's do 350 watts for the first like 10 to 15 minutes. And then every like 10 to 15 minutes, I'm going to sort of reset my goals as we keep going up and up and up. And I actually ended up doing something like 290 watt average for the entire hour and 17 minutes, which was amazing, dude. I was actually really happy with that. And I don't think I could have gone really any faster on this climb, like significant wise. Like maybe, yeah, there's a couple, I could have maybe trimmed 20 seconds, here or there, maybe, but for what the power I did at the elevation, like I paced this so well. I just was really, really happy with it. And so, I did an hour and 17 minutes, which the first time I did this, I did an hour and 30 minutes, and that felt full gas. The KOM before this was an hour and 29 minutes, so smashed the previous KOM. Unfortunately, we've got an ex-World Tour pro and a current pro up the road, making sure that I will never get this KOM ever. But so anyway, so again, I'm really looking at my power, and I'm really making sure that I don't go into the red. And that's like, Levi and Cam, they're gone. Because, dude, I'm doing 350 watts. I'm bouncing between my goal of like 320 to like 360 in this first little bit. And if I burn a match and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to stay on their wheel, even if it's 20, 30 watts over what I had planned to do, it could cost me 20 minutes in the long run, right? Like if I get to the top of this climb, or I get to the end and I've done an hour and I've just liquidated my soul, well, I still have so much more time to ride. And at elevation, you could crack so hard, and I could just lose a tremendous amount of time. And since I really want to get on the box, dude, I want to be on the podium with these guys. I want to make sure that I play it as safe as possible. And since right now there's really no one around me, there's no one behind me. Terrence was doing well there for a minute, and then he went backwards. So I've like, as long as no one catches me from behind, I should be good. But again, dude, the climb is so big, and there's so much that can go on in the next hour that you really got to pace it well. But again, dude, look at my watts, man. I'm so proud of this effort. And okay, so let's jump into how to ride gravel. First. Yeah. So I don't know if you can see right here, but I'm standing. And so a lot of times on gravel, and before you yell at me about how this is not gravel, this is just a dirt road, we are going to talk about different types of gravel, because Dirty Kansas was totally different. The Ozarks was totally different. Virginia was totally different. I've ridden all sorts of Belgian waffles, totally different. I mean, there's different types of gravel, right? And we're going to talk about that. But I was standing there for a minute, and I do this as much as I can, where most of the time when you're on gravel, the road is slick, right? And I run a full road setup as much as possible. And so if I stand, you're slipping, your wheel's slipping. And so, okay, so maybe you stand and do 350 watts, but all of that power is just in doing a burnout up the fucking mountain. So like right now I'm staying seated and I'm trying to apply the pressure super smooth. And through all the little bumps, you have to sort of time your pressure into the pedals. you can't just you can't just full gas or just hold the throttle at a certain point. You know what I mean? Because when you hit a bump, which there's a ton of them, let's say you hit the bump and your rear wheel will sort of come off the ground, and then you spin in the air, and so you're like applying power for nothing, and then you hit and you're sort of like off. Then your like rotation of your pedals is sort of off. And so, I mean, I'm not trying to make this sound super complicated, but to do to ride gravel efficiently, man, I know. I'm sorry. The house. It's Christmas Eve. We're all here hanging out in the house, and I've chosen to put my office upstairs so that when I do work, at least I can see my family. Like I work from home, and so it's like stupid to put my office downstairs, which it was at one point, but then it's like, why am I working from home when then I'm really not even home? I'm down in my office. I'm not seeing anyone. Like right now, I can stare at my baby and be like, "Aw," Anyway, so the bumps, right? And so you have to like apply the power and go, okay, here's a bump right here. So I'm going to ease up just a little bit, get the pedals right, and then as the wheel sits down into that hole, power out of it instead of powering into it. And so, dude, I am so impressed with my power right now. It's just 360, bro. Yes. Anyway, so I would choose certain times to stand because this climb's so long, all right, that for me, I like to stand at a low RPM. I can do that. When I first started riding, dude, I would do intervals where I would do 20 minutes standing, 20 minutes seated. And I really liked those. And it didn't matter about power. It was just, can you stand for 20 minutes? And just for whatever reason, I really, really like standing. And I can stand, and I have stood for something like 30 minutes without sitting. So for me, I like to switch between seated and spinning and standing and grinding. But on the gravel, you can't stand. Like I said, you can't stand, especially when it's steep. And so even when it's not steep, you stand and you're putting more torque, right? So since your cadence is lower and the pressure is still like you're putting a lot of pressure on the pedals, that becomes more of a torque based, which then you slip all over the place, and then over this big of a climb, dude, you're just losing. You're losing. So I would find little spots where like, oh, there's a little patch of road or there's a really hard pack right here. And so then I'm going to stand at this moment because you can't really, like you have to take the moments that you can stand and use those. So even maybe you don't want to stand, but I'm going to stand in this moment because I'm going to switch up the muscles that I'm using, right? Because when you're seated, you're using certain muscles. So I'm going to sort of move around what muscles are using energy. And so during gravel riding, you want to take any opportunity you can to stand, to get out of the saddle, and to sort of use a different cadence, use a different motor, more muscular, and then just also like kind of stretching your back a little bit. Like right here, dude, we're hitting some sand, bro. We're hitting sand. And so, you can't stand in sand, and it's very hard to pedal through sand at all. And one of the things is like, okay, so talking about different types of terrain, okay, is like sand, right? Sand, you have to just power through it. You got to really push hard. It's dumb when it's like push hard on the pedals, but like with sand, you almost have to up your power for that bit, sort of lean back a little bit so that you're not heavy on the front wheel. Because like you can see, dude, my front wheel's darting everywhere, and you sort of have to be comfortable in that like uncontrollability. That's what I really like about riding motos in my spare time. and are also like riding mountain bikes, is you get comfortable with the bike getting crazy. And if you've only ridden road, you never have your front wheel darting around or washing out or your back end skidding out. And so if you go from never having that experience, the second your front end goes, hey, I'm going to go right, even though you didn't tell me to, you might freak out, and then you might lift off the power or hit the brakes, and then you smoked. Because like don't hit your brakes and lift off the power and sand, because then you're going to come to a complete stop. So you sort of have to just be like, shit, and just power through and be comfortable in that chaos of your bike going through the sand. And also finding the right line choice. Like if you don't have to go through sand, like right now, see that little patch of road? There's like a little patch of road. Well, I'm gonna get on that because it's way more efficient. Okay, and so you're always constantly looking for the most efficient line through the gravel, through the dirt, whatever it is that you're on, because that's going to make a humongous difference. And that's why I love gravel, bro, is that there is a bit of a separation. Like it's not just all about power. It's not all about who has put in more training. There is a technical skill set to that. And so, Chaz, when we rode this, dude, okay, so going back, like see this little road part? So now I'm standing because I can. So I'm using this moment where there's some road to get out of the saddle, put a good amount of power down, right? Like I'm kind of kicking. I'm doing 350, 360, something like that. And bringing my speed back up. Like I'm really trying to bring my speed up in a place that I can. Because there's no way I could do this really on any other parts of the road. Like right here, I have to sit back down. And now you can kind of see my speed sort of dropping, because there's no way that I can do 400 watts out of the saddle on that part. So I'm looking for that. I'm looking for any bit where I can accelerate to bring up the speed, and and also just again like move different muscles around. So there's, again, like I said, there's different types of gravel. In my area, there's just fire roads mainly, with some sand and some like sometimes there's like rain ruts and washout. But I've ridden, dirty Kansas, and I've done Arkansas, and I've done Virginia. Those are totally different types of gravel. SoCal gravel is totally different. So the different types of gravel, right, is in my area, it's like hard packed, like a hard packed base with like a little bit of wash over the top. So depending on what time you go out, what time of the year you go out, it could be hero dirt, dude, and just be perfect. If you come out when it hasn't gotten a lot of rain, then there's a little bit of wash on top. But for the most part, there's a lot of cars that drive on these, so you can sort of get into the groove. Like you can see that there's a track, so you can go in one side or the other. SoCal, like at Belgian Waffle, is, dude, it's so hard packed. It's extremely slippery, and it's very dusty. And then there's patches of like beach sand, and then there's some spots where there's just like protruding rocks. It's very difficult. Like the Belgian Waffle ride, or like SoCal gravel is really difficult to do on a road bike, because it's so hard packed that a road bike is significantly faster on it. And you know what I mean? That if you're trying to go fast, that's what you're going to use. But then you don't have much of a footprint. And so since it's really soft or slippery, you can get yourself into some trouble. Dirty Kansas was proper gravel. I mean, there was like deep, huge chunks of gravel. And so with Dirty Kansas, there's just you can't ride a road bike. There's just no way. There would be no possible way to complete that course on road tires, just because of how deep the gravel is. Your front end would be slicing into it. You wouldn't be able to, there's just no way. You need a bigger footprint. And so understanding what type of gravel you're going to be on really, for segueing into like what type of bike, what type of tires, the terrain makes a huge difference. And so if you're going to go to buy your first gravel bike, you really want to understand, dude, what am I riding? What is in my area? And if you've never had a gravel bike, it's a little difficult to know. But you should try to borrow someone's bike, or take your road bike out and start looking at some of the gravel roads that people are doing, and look at how difficult and how technical that is. Because if you go with, like, let's say the Canyon Grail, it's a very aggressive gravel bike, and you could put some just monster tires on there. The one I rode at Raspatuzia, Vermont, there was a lot of snow and it was super muddy. And so, like, that, I mean, the bike I was on felt like a mountain bike without suspension. But here in my area, dude, a Grail is way overkill. Like, a Grail would be doing the mountain bike trails, and so what do you have in your area? And my area is like this. And so pretty much, dude, my road bike can do just about any of the gravel roads here. Obviously, having a gravel bike is kind of nice. It's a little more comfortable. You're not having to over everything. But, so that's where, like, I have a felt breed with 700C. It came with 650B, but that's just kind of overkill for my area. But, like, again, so in Kansas, in dirty Kansas, dude, you have to have a decently wide tire. You got to have a pretty beefy gravel bike. Jeremiah Bishop, he rode the Canyon Endurace, like, almost road setup. Like, he was very aggressive, and he even said, like, it was just not the right setup. What other gravel? So the Ozarks, that was the gravel there was like gravel roads. Is like these, like, pieces of, not marble, but like granite maybe. And so that guy that I just passed, Vinny, I'm going to just digress for just a second because we have got a lot of time to talk. Vinny, so I did a video a long time ago where I went and got a KOM, and I kind of hyped up, like, that he was my nemesis or whatever, that I was going for it. I wanted to get it. And then a bunch of people talk shit on the comments about him, and then he came onto the comments, and it kind of became a thing. And I see him locally every now and then, but the guy's just always been a dick to me. And maybe someone hears this that knows him and says this to him, but just we're just talking here, okay? I'm just regurgitating my feelings. But the guy has always come off to me as a dick, and he was a pro cyclist at one point. He was on, like, the Wahoo team, and he didn't quite make it. Like, he was one of those guys that he was phenomenal, and in our local area, there's really no one better than him when I first got into riding. And so I looked up to him. I looked up to him and a couple of his crew. And I was like, dude, how sick would it be to even just ride with this guy? And then that's, like, weird, right? And I'm totally going off a tangent, and I'll get back to the gravel in a second. But, like, when you first start riding, when I first started riding, I started riding with a group of, like, old dudes. They actually started a group called, like, the fast old guys or something like that, or fat old guys. I don't know. But I started riding with dudes that were like 60 when I was 24. And even in that group, I'm like, there's a pecking order that establishes. And it's like, dude, if I could just beat Sam, Sam always gets me on the climb. You have this, like, gauge of, like, dude, I want to be better than Sam. It's like, well, who the hell is Sam? Like, it doesn't really matter. But in your world, at that moment, that's important. And so then you kind of then you go to a new group, and then you're like, then there's a new pecking order. And Vinny when I was coming into this scene, he was always at the highest. He was always the top of the pecking order. He was always on the top of the Strava boards. And anytime I rode with him, I felt like, oh yes, dude, I'm riding with royalty. Even though he isn't necessarily, like, cycling royalty, but in the community, it's like, dude, you want him to like you. You want to impress him. And just every time I rode with him, he's just a dick, and very elitist. Maybe he's different now. I don't really know him that well. I don't know him personally, but just my take on, like, when I first came in, it just seemed like, dude, if you're not a Cat 1 racer, like, how dare you even talk to him? And like, he and a couple of his friends were in a position of like, man, they could really help the community. They could help guys get better. And they sort of didn't. They sort of smashed guys and would be like, you'll never be pro. You'll never be good. Why are you even trying? Like, it was so weird how he just wanted to smash everything. And so then, now that he's no longer chasing a pro cyclist's dream, you know what I mean? And I've stolen some of his KOMs. I don't know if that makes him salty or whatever, but it's like, to me, still, from getting into the community or getting in, like, this word Vinny, this guy Vinny, has always sort of been the pinnacle. And now that I'm stealing his KOMs, dude, it's like, to me, if you can put that in context, it's really neat to look back at the progression and be like, at one point, bro, just seeing Vinny on the road was like, whoa, I'm in the presence of someone special. To then going to beating his KOMs, stealing his KOMs, in his prime, like, fuck, dude. Like, it's like, whoa, dude, I've really made a lot of progression. And so even though I'm like sort of put him on this pedestal or whatever, anyway, so when I see him out riding, he just always sort of like throws these jabs or like talks shit in these weird ways that it just is so strange that that he does that. And so when I passed him there, this is a really long-winded story for this very little tiny moment, but I had said, I told him, hey, when I scouted this course, because he has the KOM on this, I was like, when I scouted the course, I saw you had the KOM and I really wanted to get it, and I went really hard, and even though the Wahoo said I had it, I was like 30 seconds short. And then instead of, like, I guess what I would say to someone in that position would be like, damn, dude, that's so dope. I was going so hard when I did that. Even if I wasn't going hard, okay, I would tell that person, because it's coming off like they are so excited that they got close to that KOM. I'd be like, yeah, man, I was giving it the berries, dude. I was going so hard, and it's a difficult climb. So, dude, good job, but I think you'll probably get it next time. That's how I think someone in a position of that should behave to the community. Okay. So when I told him that, he's just like, well, that was so long ago, and I only had one bottle and whatever. And he was like, okay, okay. And then, so I tell him, like, I'm going to for sure get it this time. And then when I passed him right there, obviously Levi and Cam are gone. And so then he's like, how's that KOM going? And so, such a jab, right? Such like, of course, dude, I'm not delusional. I know I'm not going to beat Levi Leipheimer. I know I'm not going to beat Cam Piper. Okay. And so in my situation, I guess if the roles were reversed and I know that this like weird vegan guy that has a YouTube channel and is kind of annoying is like going like, but he's trying, I would say, oh, dude, if he passed me, oh man, go, dude, they're not that far up the road. You got this. Like, no matter how you feel inside, like, throwing some encouragement a bro's way is always the right option, okay? And so when I pass him, and for him to be like, how's that KOM going? Well, it's like, yeah, of course, dude. I knew I wasn't going to get it, all right? But I'm trying. I'm definitely giving it my all. I'm going to smash your fucking KOM by 12 minutes or whatever it is, 13 minutes. And so anyway, dude, it's just like so weird sometimes when guys in the community are like even though he's not a full-on racer anymore, and he always often says like, I don't even own a road bike. There's just always these times where it's just like the jabs he makes, or just like he comes off so salty or like upset. And I don't want to like put him on blast. I probably shouldn't even said his name. But like just using it as an example, because the last couple, trainer companions, we've talked about being an elitist. And it's just, there's no room for it here in this community, dude. Right? Like, there's no room for being an elitist in anything. Like, if you're good at something, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, it's not, like, being good at riding bikes really doesn't matter. All right. And it doesn't matter on anything. Maybe you're the best astrophysicist. Like, you still don't need to be an asshole. You don't need to, you can uplift other people around you. The way you behave, it propagates. So when, like, okay, when I first get into the cycling community, and that guy, the guy I'm talking about, Vinny, and his, like, whole crew are, like, the best around, and everyone looks up to them. And dude, if you could ride, guys would be like, hey man, you know what? I rode with Vinny last week. And it's like, whoa, dude, you're so lucky. My coach, Tony, at the time, he's just my boy, my friend, like, he got on their team. And he was riding with them a lot. And he was like, damn, dude, I wish I was in that crew. It's just how it is, right? It's like tribe mentality and who you become friends with. But it's like their crew has this power to steer future generations. And I know that at the time they're not thinking about that at all. But if you are a dick to everyone, okay? Example, one time I was riding with those guys and I had started to get decent, I didn't suck. I was hanging on their wheels. Like I wasn't a total Fred. And I brought this other guy with me who was a bit more of a Fred, but dude, he's just trying to ride his bike and enjoy things. So we're riding on this road, we're going, and I know the route and they know the route, but this other guy didn't know the route. And so he sort of went ahead and missed the turn. And, since I'm not the leader of this group and like I'm still like kind of intimidated by all these guys, I wasn't going to tell him, I was expecting these other guys to be like, hey, it's right turn here. But they didn't. They didn't tell him, right? And so he blasts by the turn and then they all turn and go, good one, guy. Good going, guy. And it's like, what? Like, so they're talking shit because this guy didn't know the route? Like, you know what I mean? And so then potentially what you're doing in that situation is showing other riders how to behave. Oh, when you get to be a cat 1 and 2, then you can be a dick to everyone. But dude, don't do that, right? You don't, that's not cool. And so, I think that they spread a little bit of elitism in the community and turn people off. Our cycling community where I'm at right now, that it is like 95% high vis rider, like, zone 1 to the burger shop. Like, it's not, everyone's just wanting to go out and not be competitive in any way, shape, or form. Like, almost the fact that if like you're a racer, it is looked down on by a lot of the community. I got totally shit on by my community when I did the Climb to Kaiser video. Like, they got me disqualified from the event. It was so strange. I might have told this story before, but it was like, I filmed this whole thing and I got permission from the event organizer to film it. And I said, hey man, I want to make sure I don't get disqualified because you can't have your personal SAG. And so, he gave me permission. We even put someone from the Fresno Cycling Club. They were the driver, you know what I mean? So, like, clearly someone from their organization even is going to see if I hold onto the car or break any rules. And anyway, dude, there was a moment in where on the Instagram story, because I had this Valentine from Germany. He was staying with me, dude, and he was so awesome. And he was helping me with filming it. So he was filming a story, Instagram story, video, okay? And I take my bottle from my bike and I hand it into the car, bike to the car. So I could have just thrown it on the ground, right? But why would I do that? That's a dick move. But that is within the rules. So I'm like, well, instead of throwing this bottle on the ground, I'm going to give it into the car. So I give it into the car. Someone screenshotted that story at the very moment that I was handing the bottle into the car and that someone was grabbing it. So, and then they posted that and they sent that to the organization and said he's taking bottles. And it's like, it was almost like a Twilight Zone. Like, what? So someone had to have saw this video of me not taking the bottle, but they screenshotted the moment where it looks like it could be going either way, right? And so then I got disqualified, even though the woman driving said no, he never took any food from the car. I had some other woman say that she swears she saw me like taking sodas from the car at Shaver. But the car wasn't even, the film crew wasn't even at Shaver. They got stuck at the top of Kaiser. Okay, so it was like, it's not even possible. And so I was like, that didn't happen because, we didn't even have the car there. And they were like, well, you must have had two cars then. What? Dude, I didn't have two cars. What are you talking about? It was so crazy, man. I felt so betrayed by my community that so many people literally took time out of their day to try to get me disqualified. Now, there were some people that came to my defense, which was awesome, but still, what I'm just sort of getting into, this is such a long-winded bit. I'm just drinking like some little homemade tea that my wife made for me there. Just like an herbal, whatever, hippie stuff. So what I'm just trying to get at, and this is such a deviant from this freaking how to ride gravel, okay? But is like, in my community, racers are looked down on, and there's not a whole lot of that community that is like uplifted. And I think it really stems from some of the elitist actions in the beginning. And I'm not trying to blame all this on Vinny, okay? Like, so in no way am I being like Vinny caused our whole community to be shit. But what I'm saying is that his attitude and some of the guys around him, they probably learned that when they were coming up, right? So when Vinny starts getting good and he starts racing with like really good guys, like he rode with Chris Horner and some of these like legit pros at the time, they were probably that way too. You know what I mean? So spreading that like elitist hate, when he's coming up into the community, he sees that and he's like, oh, well, that's what you do when you're a pro. And that's just how it is with life in general. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just how it works. When you're coming up through something and you get into a community, you sort of adopt the practices of that community. Now, if those, and then you might become the leader of that community or an influencer in that community. And so shit in, shit out is kind of how that works. You know what I mean? If you come into a community and it's negative, then you're going to spread negativity. Maybe even if you don't mean to, but it sort of takes a very special person or type of scenario to break that. Okay? And so, because you're going against the grain, you're going against like how everything has always been. You know what I'm saying? I wear flannel sometimes. I wear t-shirts, dude, and I've had some like real hardcore cyclists just like kind of poo-poo that hardcore, right? Like that's the dumbest thing ever. But it's like, why? I don't. Anyway, dude, I'm going so sideways. So like, when I was coming up through this and seeing how they were behaving to other guys, like I didn't want any part of that, man. I didn't want to be a part of that. And I always thought like, dude, if I was ever in the situation where I was a good cyclist and people were looking up to me, that I wasn't going to be an elitist doucher. And even now, man, I just don't know why that guy, like, he just like hates me. I feel like there was one time I was trying to talk to him. I saw him riding by my house because they do mountain bikes all the time. I never get an invite. They don't invite me at all. It makes me feel bad about myself. But it's like, I saw him riding and I was like, oh, hey, what's up, dude? And then I went to like talk to him. I was like, hey, saying something about mountain biking. He just rode away from me. And it was like, God, that's a fucking dick move, dude. And maybe that's just his personality or whatever. But what I'm going to end it here. I'm going to end it on this, which is, no matter your situation. Okay, so let's go a little deeper into this because so sideways. with on the other end, okay, as the guy coming up, it's very easy sometimes to think that a guy's an elitist because of small things that happen. Let's just say a pro cyclist is out training. He's in his fifth interval. Yikes, that was my phone. He's in his fifth interval. He's in the box, dude. He's super focused. And then you roll up and are like, hey, what's up, dude? What's going on? All peppy and happy. And well, maybe in that moment, dude, that other guy is not really wanting to like be super friendly. And potentially it would come off as elitist, even though you're not being elitist. It's just an awkward moment. There was one time where me and a couple guys were doing like a race pace type thing, and we flew by a couple, high vis riders up a climb. We gave them space. I think I even like threw like a what's up, and I heard them say something like, "Oh, I hate racers." Like they got really mad that we came around them. You know what I mean? And I've even talked to some people that say that they hate when guys do that. Well, it's like, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to slow down and get on your wheel and then like give you a hug or something before we pass you? And so in that moment, you kind of have to understand, like, when guys blow by you, it's not that they're being elitist douchers just by being fast. That's just a part of their program, or they're doing what they want to do. And so it kind of works both ways. You can't say, oh, well, that guy is elitist and an asshole because he didn't wave to me when he was doing his 40-20s and had his tongue in his spokes. Even though I'm going to say, no matter what, you should always throw at least like a nod or like a little deuce, but whatever, right? And so then like, but the other way around, okay, is that you got to be really careful on how you portray yourself if at all in a position where anyone looks up to you. And maybe you're like, bro, I've got a 0-watt FTP. No one's looking up to me. There's someone at some level that is looking up to you. Unless this is the first day you've ever gotten a bike, someone would be like, oh man, that guy's helmet looks cool. Or man, that guy got on his bike in a cool way. Or like whatever the case, if you see someone who's new to the game, asking them questions, do they want to talk about cycling, right? Everyone wants to talk about cycling. And you can find common ground no matter where that is. Bro, Phil Guyman and myself have nothing in common with cycling, okay? He is on another planet. He has raced world tour. Like, bro, there is nothing we have in common. Yet when I rode with him, when I had him up here, dude, you would be hard, if you didn't know who he was, you would not be able to know or tell that he had raced at such a high level. Because no matter what it was, you'd be talking like, oh man, this one time, I was in this race and yada, yada, yada. He would relate to you. He would relate to me. Be in like the same way, like, oh yeah, man, I totally get when that happens. And it's like, but do you really? Because like, do you really get that? Because when I'm saying, oh, I was on the rivet at 300 watts, you know what I mean? Like that's his tempo. That's his recovery. It's his endurance. You know what I'm saying? But he was still able to like connect with me on the feeling that you have when you get dropped, right? We both have the same feeling. It's just he gets dropped at a whole different level than I do. But in the terms of like when I'm saying, oh man, I hate it when, guys attack, or I try to bridge to a move and then I get there and then they don't work. Like he could just be like, oh, well, I don't know, man. I've never raced a dumb, Cat 2 crit. Like I'm a pro rider. That could be something he could say, but he doesn't. And he was like so understanding of my experience of cycling, because everyone sort of has a shared experience of cycling. It's all sort of the same. Maybe the pace is different, and maybe the personnel is different. Getting dropped by Chris Froome or getting dropped by a 14-year-old girl, like you're getting dropped, it's kind of the same experience. And so you can sort of come together on that. And that's like what Phil was doing so well, dude. Is like I felt me and him were the same even though we weren't at all. And that is the type of mentality and the type of culture we should breed in our community, so that cycling breeds new life. When a new kid comes into cycling and dudes are dicks to him and being like, oh, dude, you'll never be good, bro. You'll never be pro. Well, then maybe he doesn't want to be a part of this, you know? And so it's just really like, I know this tangent just went so sideways just because of one dude. But like, dude, to go on to that point is like, this one guy's behavior has altered the way I look at cycling and has affected me for so long. Because when I came into this, I was so green and so like malleable and so just, okay, show me what cycling is about. And since he was sort of my first introduction into that, and it was so negative, you know, it's like it's just stuck with me for a long time. And then even now, being like, how's that going, man? How's that KO? Well, fuck, man. You don't have to be like that. You don't. I promise you, you don't have to be like that. Okay, sipped my coffee, spewed my rant. Be positive, bro. That's all I'm saying. No matter what level you're at. Okay, so let's go back to gravel and how to ride gravel. So different types of gravel. You have deep, thick gravel, chunky rocks like Dirty Kansas. You've got mud and snow like Vermont. You have in Arkansas. There is like it's very flat. It's not technical, but the like I was saying, the shards of like, they're like shards of granite. And they're very sharp, and so that you gotta think about tire choice, you know, in that scenario. What else? And like the Belgian waffle, very dry and slippery, and in my area, it's actually the best, right? And so, really trying to think about what type of gravel you're riding when you're gonna go get a gravel bike. So if you're going to be riding stuff like this, dude. For the most part, like a road bike dude, a road bike does so well. A road bike is going to do really good no matter on this type of stuff. And it's going to be really efficient. It's not going to be as comfortable, you know what I mean? But man, I'm on a full road setup on my Canyon Ultimate Princeton Carbon wheels, like full race wheels with IRC X Guard 28. So like they are wide 28s. Could be way wider, but this is the road setup there's nothing different about this setup than I would be on the road. Now, so then when you go to get a gravel bike, potentially something that's much more racy, because then you're going to be way efficient. Now, I've got a full suspension mountain bike, and so like let's just say that's if you're going from full road to full squish, okay, that spectrum. It was very different in efficiency. And like a full squish mountain bike, almost died, cool. The full squish mountain bike is amazing unless you want to do a 3-hour ride on this road. Like if I was going to take a mountain bike out on this course, dude, it would take me close to double the time. And I think I did 8 hours or something. Right? What did I do? Let's see. I did 6 hours. No, what did I do? Well, so on this climb, I did 290 watt average, which was awesome. But I'm going to get off that page. 5 hours. 5 hours, 19 minutes. Moving time. On a mountain bike, bro, you'd be looking at 8 hours for sure. Easy. And so just to give you some kind of context of like efficiency. Yeah, the more comfortable it gets, the less efficient it is. And so if you're not very strong and you're going to go out with a bunch of guys and your gravel bike is heavy, squishy, comfortable as fuck, and everyone else is on borderline road bikes, it's not going to be a great experience to riding with those guys. They're going to be doing 300 watts or whatever. They might be doing 200 watts, and for you to stay with them, it would be like 300 watts. Bro, I'm doing 400 watts at elevation at the end of this ride. I'm very happy with my performance on this now that I'm looking back on it. And I'm see, there's road here, so I'm using this road to stand and apply a lot of power because I don't have that opportunity a lot. So, anyways, I look at it as like three different levels. Either you're going to have a road bike that you're going to take out on gravel every once in a while, like I do, or you're going to have a middle of the road gravel bike, right? That, like, okay, so for your road bike, you could just have a different set of wheels, that have a little bit of knobby on them. Dude, that honestly, taking your road bike and just getting a second set of wheels that have more cushion in the tire, a little bit more knobbies. Maybe potentially your bike has to be able to fit those. The clearance is an issue, but if you can do that, that might be one of the better ways to go, is to just have one bike with two sets of wheels. But if you have a more aggressive gravel, or you're going to really get into gravel, then potentially getting into like a $2,000 to $3,000 bike, like the Felt Breed, I really, really liked. It's a little heavy, but very capable. It came with 650B wheels. I swapped it out to 700s, and I'm kind of running like, not a slick or anything. It's got a little bit of knobbies on it, but it's more for hard packed. It's pretty efficient, and it's a 1x. It climbs super well. Anyway, there's that level of like, you could ride it on the road, you could ride it on gravel, and you could ride it on aggressive stuff. But for the most part, it's like hard packed, basically just dirt roads. The Canyon Endurace is a great one for that as well, if you're like more road or hard packed gravel. But if you're getting into aggressive stuff like dirty Kanza type things, or like the gravel's just chunky and it's thick, maybe you're hitting a lot of mud, maybe you live in a place where it rains. I don't. It never rains here. Then you're looking at potentially a little bit more aggressive of a bike, something that's got a bigger footprint, a little bit more soft, disc brakes, obviously. And so like the Canyon Grail that's a beefy bike. If you got the Grail, I wouldn't say to get the double bar setup. I hate that double bar setup. And I rode a Grail, an aluminum Grail before Belgian Waffle with, dude, I'm forgetting his name, and that makes me a total asshat. Eric Zabel. I rode with Eric Zabel, 7-time green jersey winner, before Belgian Waffle, which was such a crazy experience. And we were on the Grail, but with the normal bars, like a regular Canyon bar setup, not the double bar. And holy smokes, dude, that might be the best setup for the dollar. It was amazing. It was really good. And we rode some technical stuff, dude. I mean, we went down a downhill that was like all rain rutted and very slippery. It was crazy. Eric Zabel crashed, and that was crazy to see. Eric also, and it's okay. Fuck, I'm so all over the place. But I just want to make a little tangent in that. I've ridden with a couple pros, and not to like name drop or anything, but I've ridden with some pros that are so high level, like let's say Eric Zabel, Phil Guyman, and Levi Leipheimer. Those guys, man, they love riding bikes. They just love it. Eric was like a little kid on this gravel bike, like big smile on his face, dude, like doing skids and jumps, and like, dude, he was just having a blast, and he didn't have to, right? He was like obligated to do this like industry ride through Canyon or whatever, but he was just having a phenomenal time. And now Peter Sagan, when I rode with him, I didn't get that vibe from him. I got like he was working, right? Anyway, also that woman that I just passed, dude, she was insanely strong. Clarice was her name, and I don't even think she's a racer. I talked to her just a little bit, but so I caught her here, and during this big climb, like you always got to try to find a little bit of motivation. And so when you see a rider up the road, you're like, cool, I'm going to catch that person. And then when you catch that person, because right now you can see my watts, they're really drooping, man. I think that right now my average power is still something like 310, which that it ended up dropping significantly here in the end. But that's to be expected because it's we're now 8,000 feet of elevation. We've been riding for a long time. Anyway, so I pass her. I'm like, cool, I'm going. And then, dude, she locked onto my wheel and she kind of didn't let me go away. And it really pushed me super hard because I know in the last one I talked about getting chicked, and that was like, a lot of people got triggered on that. Not a lot. Some people did, because obviously, you know what I mean? We sort of live in a time where if you talk anything about gender in any sort of fashion, it's a very quick, like, oh my goodness, you're being sexist or terrible or whatever the case. Not my intention. It's just, again, to go back on like what a community breeds is when I got into the community, that phrase, getting chicked, like that's just something you use all the time. It's just something that is like, it's not a taboo. It's not detrimental. You don't look at it in that way. And so when a word or a phrase is used in a certain way, and that's what you adopt because that's how the community's using it, like let's say cool, the word cool, like everyone's like, oh, you use the word cool to reference something that's like hip or neat, or like, it's a positive intention, right? But cool means like temperature, technically. You know what I mean? But when you use it in that context, but like, let's say all of a sudden, the word cool immediately became racist because of whatever reason. Well, it'd be really difficult for a whole generation that has multiple generations that have used that word and it doesn't mean that at all, to kind of immediately stop using that phrase because that's not the intention. But then you're like, oh, hey, that's cool. And people are like, oh, dude, you're racist. Like, whoa, what? I'm not, what are you talking about? Like, I'm not using, but it's changed now. And so anytime you talk about gender, it's just like, it's difficult to walk that line. You know what I mean? And man, we're going off on an even more tangent, but it's like, it's weird that words hold this power that other people dictate what you mean by saying them. You know what I mean? If you say a certain word, it's like, well, this is what you mean by when you're saying that. Well, it's not what I meant when I said that at all. Why are you telling me what I meant to say? Don't put, you can't do that. You can't be like, oh, I said the word, hot dog. And it's like, well, I think that's, a derogatory word towards Polish people. It's like, well, that's not what he's saying, even though maybe that's how I'm interpreting it. Like, what's the intention? And intention is everything. But besides the point, like what I'm saying is that I was pulled through a community where getting chicked, that's just the thing you say. And so then I said it, and people are not into that. But it's not my intention. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I don't want to get chicked, and she's on my wheel. And so she kept me honest, dude, like the whole way. And I was like, I'd get these little moments of like motivation. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna drop her, dude. I'm gonna leave her. And then I'd put a bunch of power out, and then she's still there. She's still on my wheel. And she actually ended up passing me later on. And she finished ahead of me from here on. I mean, obviously I think her time on this was, she did an hour and 24 minutes. I did an hour and 17 minutes because we started behind her. But still, dude, an hour and 24 minutes is legit as fuck. Like, and then at the end of the ride, when we were doing like the going really, really hard, bro, it was insane. Like, it was like a crit race at the very end, and you can see that in the video. And dude, she was like not even trying, and she was right there with everyone. And it was so crazy. And at one point, I'm like bleeding out of my eyes, and I look over to her and she goes, "It's kind of hard, huh?" I'm like, "Kind of hard? What do you mean it's kind of what?" Like it was, dude, it was crazy, bro. And I want to say I talked to her after the race, after the ride, and maybe she's not a race. I can't really remember, but it's like she's never done a race or she just started riding. But it's like one of those riders that's just wildly gifted, and holy smokes, man, she was very, very strong. So anyway, where are we at here? I'm so lost with what I've been saying. But I like that, dude. I like the trainer companions because we just go on rants together. Okay, we're just exploring and navigating the inner works of the mind, and so yeah, so it is what it is, dude. I want to try to tell you as much of my thoughts as possible, even though sometimes those thoughts are like, not um people would want to maybe not share some of these thoughts because it's like, I'm sharing my thoughts about this guy Vinny. It's like, well, that might make me look really bad because it's like, you don't want to just talk shit on someone. You don't want to like put that out there. And then now, of course, someone's going to take it way out of context. They're going to be like, hey, he said you're an elitist douche. And then it's going to be drama. And it's not what I was really saying. I'm just trying to say like, his attitude towards me, and maybe the dude's awesome to everyone else he meets. Maybe just for whatever reason, he doesn't like me. And that's fine. It's okay to not like another person. It's okay to not like another person and not know why you don't like that other person, right? That's okay. You know what I mean? Especially here in America, because it's a free country. And so do whatever you want. But when it comes to like, I guess the interaction with those people, like there's people you cannot like. Cool. Don't like them. But you don't need to go out of your way to let them know you don't like them or to be a dick to them, And so that's my perception. And how many times do people not talk about like, oh, well, that guy was always a dick to me. And like, okay, I would want to know if someone thought I was a dick to them. I wished they would come and go, hey man, you're kind of a dick sometimes. Hey, you said this and it stuck with me for a long time. Hey, you acted this way and it really messed with me. Dude, I would love to know that because maybe it was just a miscommunication. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. And that's not how I feel. So maybe Vinny in no way feels that maybe he was like, oh, I'm just joking with him, and saying like, oh, hey, how's that KOM going? Kind of as like a bro to a bro being like, kind of making a little jab. And he's thinking it's like funny, but I'm taking it in a completely different light because of all the past history. And maybe he doesn't even remember that shit. Maybe he doesn't even remember me riding with him one day and then him and his buddy like yell at this other guy for taking a wrong turn. Maybe he doesn't even remember that shit, right? But it changes the perspective that I have on that interaction. So when I'm talking about all this, when I try to talk about my mind and just spill all my inner thoughts out, inner thoughts about getting checked or how a guy, I think kind of put a lot of negativity into a community. Those are things that I think a lot of times people are thinking or feeling, but don't want to say anything. But we should be more open. We should be more open with everyone, bro. And in every situation we can do where we're more open. Like how many problems come from miscommunication? That just miscommunication, if that was avoided, how such huge situations, huge issues wouldn't even be an issue anymore. And also knowing where someone's coming from, like everything in context, right? Context matters so much. And so when we're like hold our cards close to our chest, when we don't really open up, when we don't let other people know how we're feeling. I know that's so hippie, bro, and it's like I'm not trying to be Dr. Phil or some shit, but I always tell my son this. My son gets really upset sometimes over weird things. He's like a very emotional kid. He's not like me at all, right? He is very much like my wife, extremely emotional. Like, I'm a very logical person. Like, logic is king for me. And so a lot of times but emotion is not. And so like when my wife and I will get in arguments about how fast I'm driving, and she's like, "Why are you driving so fast?" And I'm like, "I'm not, like, logically speaking, I'm not driving fast." You know what I mean? It's just, it might feel like we're driving fast because there was a turn there. But my wife, in her mind, is all emotional. So all she can think about is what happens if we crash. And I'm like, "Look, dude, logically, we're not going to crash. I'm nowhere near the limits of this car. I'm not really going that fast. Like, you're just thinking about it emotionally." And yeah, emotionally, if we crash, it would suck. And so then, so anyway, my son's very similar to that. He's very, like, emotional about a lot of things. And so maybe he gets mad, and he has a hard time explaining things. So like, he'll just shut down and get very upset and like walk away. And what I try to tell him is, dude, tell us how you're feeling. And if you tell us how you're feeling, a lot of this just goes away. So for instance, he was having a bad day a couple days ago. I don't know, we were cooking dinner, and he just was in a shitty mood, dude. And he was being really mean to his sister and me, and I was like about to just explode. My head, I wanted to uppercut him through the roof. And my wife kind of was yelling at him like, "Why are you being like this?" And so then he just shut down and was like, "I don't want to talk." And he started to go to his room, and I was like, "No, man, chill." And I really took a moment to like sit with him and be like, "Okay, obviously something's up, because you're acting in a way that's not normal." And it took a while, but eventually he was like, "At school, these kids were making fun of me and whatever." It wasn't like anything crazy, but he was just having a little bit of issues with like friends at school. And I was like, "Bro, why wouldn't you lead with that?" You know what I mean? That's so easy for you to be like, "Hey, Mom, I'm in a really bad mood. These kids were making fun of me at school for this reason, for whatever." You know what I mean? I felt bad. Like, that changes that interaction massively, right? It changes it from, "Hey, you're being a shithead, dude. You need to snap out of it. You need to be you need better personality." Like, as a parent, I'm like, how do I make you not act this way? To then all of a sudden being like, "Oh, okay, there's now a reason behind him acting this way, and now I can relate. Now I can empathize, and now it completely changes." Right? And so telling someone their emotions or how they're feeling is, I think is so important. It's just so important with everything in life, dude. And I know that this is like a cycling channel or whatever, but I often, there's so much life lessons inside of cycling. And when potentially, like going back to the elitist stuff or the casual rider, like, "Hey man, it makes me feel really bad when you fly by me and you're not even breathing hard, and I'm like tongue in the spokes," right? Like, that's something that can be shared. That's an experience that can be told from one person to another. Be like, "Hey, it makes me feel really bad when this happens." Then the other person can be like, "Oh, dude, I mean, that's not my intention. I didn't mean to make you feel like that. But let me explain where I'm coming from, is that I've been in your situation. I've been where guys are flying by me. I'm still in that situation. Other guys fly by me. But this is just a part of cycling where, don't use this as a negative thing. Don't be like, 'Oh, these guys flew by me, now I feel bad.' Have it be like, those guys flew by me. Hey, one day I'll fly by them." And then that communication all of a sudden puts you guys on the same page, and then it's like, then there's no bad blood. Then there's nothing negative about that. Now it's like the same action, guy flying by other guy, goes from, "Hey, he's an elitist douche. Hey, he's a total Fred, and we don't like each other," to then when the feelings are expressed, right? Then it's like, you're friends, right? And then you kind of know each other a little bit. You know more about that person's story. Dude, so hippie, bro. I'm literally telling you to share your feelings. But I'm just saying, like, we kind of live in this society, dude, where sharing your feelings, sharing your thoughts, it's scary. It's scary, especially in these times where if I share my a thought on something, if someone's going to take that out of context and just run with it, and then it's like, dude, it's not what I meant. But now it's totally done. I mean, people's entire careers and livelihoods are ruined because you said something in a time of, like, you know, maybe you were weak and you didn't think it through, but it's just how you felt in that moment. But then you don't have any recourse to, like, sort of back it up and be like, hey, this is actually where I was coming from. You know what I'm saying? So to say that, like, I don't know where Vinny's coming from. I don't know, like, the way he's acted towards me or how I perceive that. Could just be a miscommunication. It's all good, dude. And again, the thing about getting chicked, it's just like how that community was, those words, and it's like, it's not my intention or whatever to put someone down by any means. And so when it's like, hey, someone said something and it triggered you, like, what was the intention behind that? Like, why did it trigger you so much? Why are you going to jump on a side, I guess, right away? I don't know, man. Let's talk a little bit more about gravel. So getting towards the top of this climb here, there goes Clarice, right? And I'm just like, dude, no, you know, like, she's getting me. And I tried to really dig deep here, but we're pretty close to the finish, and I've got really nothing left. And we're at elevation, so I can't really just muscle through. I mean, you saw the power, bro. I mean, I did really, really well this whole time. Again, I did 1 hour and 17 minutes on this whole thing. And what else? Levi Leipheimer did 1 hour and 6. And Cam Piper did, I'm pulling it up. Cam Piper did 1 minute 9. So an hour. Levi actually did like 106.57. I did 117.52. Cameron did 109.36. Clarice there, though, dude, she did 124. That puts her at, I think, 5th overall out of everyone, right? So she chicked a lot of dudes, you know. Again, like, super strong and super cool chick. So anyway, getting to the top here, and what's so funny, dude, is I was so happy with this result, so happy with how well I did, and your boy didn't cross the Strava line. So I crossed the line for the Fondo, like the electronic thing, whatever, you know, you have a chip on your thing and it beeps on a thing. And so then I passed that and immediately just turned over to Cam Piper and Levi, and I didn't pass the Strava segment, dude. So even though I have the 3rd fastest time on the Strava segment, it's like 124 or 125, even though I did 117. Like, I just sat at the top before triggering the Strava segment for like 5 minutes. And I lose sleep over that often, you know, just thinking like, oh my goodness, dude, like, I'll be very difficult for me to get out here again with like perfect conditions. Like, the weather was perfect. Like, it's cold at the top, but it's not cold enough to where, like, you're not overheating. It was like perfect conditions. So it's like, I don't think I'm ever going to have that opportunity to do perfect conditions again. But maybe when I'm stronger, I can come back. But anyway, you know what I mean? I did 1 hour and 17. I just didn't cross the stupid Strava segment. So always think about the Strava segments, man. You got to always think about those, because that's important, bro. Strava's amazing, okay? Anyone who tells you Strava's not amazing or that competing's not amazing, like, I know that for some people, yeah, competition's stupid and it's like, who really cares? But it's personal achievement, it's personal goals, right? And when you look back on things, sometimes when you're like in a bad mood, you can look back and go, dude, actually, that did, I did pretty good. Or, hey, man, I didn't do very good. Next time I'm going to do better. Always having these little mini goals, these little things to strive towards. And that's what I love about Strava is, you get out on the road and maybe you don't have a lot of motivation. You're just like kind of searching around, like, what can I do? What little grain of salt can I attach to like give me motivation to get out and ride my bike? And sometimes that motivation is just, hey, dude, I'm going to go try to steal a KOM, or I'm going to just try to get on the top 10 of the leaderboard, or I'm just going to complete this segment. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It's all relative. But what little nugget of because it's just like a catalyst. You know what I mean? Like they say, it's every snowflake that started, and every raindrop that comes down all has a something in it that caused it to create. And it's like this little grain of dirt, or like little thing, this little catalyst that started everything around it. Okay. And so maybe not a raindrop, I can't remember, but definitely snowflake. Anyway, so like this little tiny thing created all of this out of it. And that's sometimes what we need for motivation. Is just, bro, all I want to do today is get out and go smash this one climb and go hard. And if you can think like, okay, well, my last time was 10 minutes and this time I'm going to do 9:40. That little grain of sand gets you out riding, and then you're feeling good. Then you ride bigger, and it's all good, dude. So anyway, we come up to the finish. The Strava segment is just in front of me, but I don't cross it. And we end the segment. So look, dude, I hope you enjoyed. I know that me talking about gravel got interrupted quite a bit about just all other things in life. But, it's just what it is. It is what it is. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that you learned something about gravel. I'll probably do a full-on video about gravel, like a more condensed, because I've got a lot to say about it. But you know what I mean? I hope that you enjoyed listening to this, and I hope you get out and ride your bike. And don't be an elitist doucher. That's, ride all the bikes. Don't be a douche. As always, vegan cyclist. You.